Hey, what's up, guys? It's Maz coming at you again with another podcast, and I've got Bulldog with me.
Yes, returning guest, baby.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be back.
And we're going to be talking about a couple topics here today, and they're all going to be about football. It's going to be college football and the NFL, but one thing I do want to hear about is your trip to Greece. How was that?
Oh, yeah. So did a study abroad over the winter break, a little 2-week trip over into Europe. Did 1 week in Athens, Greece, 1 week in Rome, Italy. Really, really cool experience. Did it through Mays Business School. Went with about 30 other students. Really, really fun trip. Got to experience a new culture, all that good stuff. Kind of learn about those countries. Had some new cuisine. Big foodie, a big yelper. So I enjoyed the food over there. But yeah, it was really, really fun. Got to see a lot of historical sites. Saw the Acropolis, Roman Coliseum, Parthenon, original Olympic Stadium, all that good stuff. But really, really cool experience. Encourage a lot of people to do it if they get the chance.
It's awesome. Do you actually have to do class?
Yeah, so we actually did it. So compared to a lot of other study abroads around the world, some don't do as much work, but our professor actually did make us do a little bit of work, which in the moment it did kind of suck, but looking back on it, it's actually really cool to learn about, though. So we did actually have some studies to do, but it'd be all right. So
nice.
Heck yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So let's just talk about college football this year. Last year of the 14 playoff. What are your thoughts about this year? Do you think that the 14 playoff went out with a bang, or do you think it could have been better?
Yeah, so originally when the playoff committee came out with their 4 teams, I did think a couple of teams maybe could have got in with the 4th spot. But after watching the games, I do think the committee did get the 4 teams right. And for the last year of it being the 14 playoff, they made a great selection. It was arguably the 2 best semifinal games we've seen, competitive games. We've seen some blowouts in some of the semifinal matchups. It was actually competitive games, really fun to watch. I was actually in Greece watching the Texas game at 4 a.m. because of the time change over there. But yeah, I thought it went out with a bang with the 14 playoff.
You're praying on Texas?
Yeah, I am glad that little school down in Austin, Texas lost. Not a big fan of them. So,
yeah, I agree. I thought it was very good. That Alabama-Michigan game, while I was watching, I was like, this is the best game I've watched all year.
Yeah.
That game was tremendous. And like many people, I didn't think Alabama deserved to be in at the beginning, but obviously after watching it, it was a tremendous game. Yes. Same with the Texas-Washington game. It went down to the very end, even though an injury for Washington kind of helped Texas back into that game.
It's okay, though. It's okay.
And I actually watched that game at one of my friends' houses that goes to UT.
Mm-hmm.
So
TU.
Yeah, TU.
Yeah, get it right, man.
And I wore purple to that game just to despite him. But I thought it was a great year for college football. It was a good year to end out the 14 playoff, and can't wait to see what happens with the 12-team playoff. But I don't think we can go talking about college football without mentioning this: Nick Saban's retirement.
Yes.
The GOAT, the greatest coach of all time. You can throw Bear Bryant in there, but in my personal opinion, it's Nick Saban. Is Alabama going to be the same without Nick Saban?
I think there's going to be a couple years of adjustment with any good coach that retires like that. Alabama will still be Alabama. There's still going to be a good football program, but I think it's going to take a couple years for Kalen DeBoer to actually establish his culture, his era of Alabama football. I mean, it's kind of hard to come in after Nick Saban, like you said, greatest coach of all time. But they will still be Alabama, but not necessarily Saban's Alabama, if that makes any sense.
I totally agree. And I think the reason, it might have been hard for them to find a coach is because no one wants to go after the greatest of all time. You're always going to be a step down from him. It's going to be, you're just going to be in his shadow constantly. But I think it was a great hire. I think they could have maybe hired a Lane Kiffin or something like that. I think that was one of the other options, but I think DeBoer was a great option there. And I think a big statement that he had was he landed Ryan Williams, one of the best receivers in the class of 2025. Or I think he reclassified to 2024 actually. So he's 2024, and he's Mr. Football, and he's going to be Mr. Football for 2 years straight, which is in Alabama, which I think that's a big statement from him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think they'll be good, but I think Saban really pushed them this year. I don't think they were as good as their record showed as like a team, but his coaching propelled them to that level.
I would agree.
But talking about Alabama and the playoff, who did you have in those games before those games were played?
Yeah, so before I had Alabama and Washington playing the national championship. Not that I doubted Michigan. I just thought, there was kind of some speculations with Saban possibly retiring.
Yeah.
Thought he was going to go out on a bang. He almost pulled it off against Michigan. So I personally had Alabama and Washington playing, and I had Alabama winning it all. But that was my picks. Obviously, I was wrong on one of them.
So me and my family, we do like a bowl game like predictions thing, and I actually picked Michigan and Washington. I picked Michigan to win the national championship game, and I didn't know that they were going to beat Washington the way that they did. In the first half, they just ran all over them. I didn't think that was going to be the case because in the UT game, Washington pretty much just stopped them. They just completely dominated them at the line of scrimmage, and they were able to do that. But obviously, Michigan, one of the best O-lines in the nation, two of the best running backs in the nation, showed why they went there. And Harbaugh got his first national championship and probably his last.
Yeah.
Now that he's going to the NFL.
Los Angeles Charger coach now, baby.
Yeah.
See what he can get out of Justin Herbert.
I think he'll do good there, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in that situation. But let's get to another part of the podcast. We got superlatives for the college football season.
Okay.
So the first one we got is the class clown. Who do you think is the class clown?
Oh, it's a good question, Maslow. Although it pains me to say this, I feel like our Texas Aggies were one of the laughing stocks of college football. I could dive into some deeper stuff with this, but I think it's evident that we are the villain of college football, especially now at NIL. A lot of people like to hate on us, and especially with Jimbo's little yapping, but he liked to talk. He was always about that talk, but he couldn't actually walk the walk here at A&M, and it cost us a lot. We ended up going 7-5 this year, although it was an improvement from 5-7. Thank God. We still, in the media's eyes and in college football fans' eyes, we're still that school that paid $30 million for a recruiting class, and people are going to hold that against us forever until we actually show that we have results on the football field. And we've been very inconsistent. I've been watching A&M football for 20 years. My dad been going to A&M, or he went to A&M, started in 1992. Been watching them for about 30 years now. They've been inconsistent since. And we have to actually show the results on the field before the opinion changes on us here at A&M.
I totally agree. But and I think a part of that is the buyout that we had for Jimbo. I think that also is a part of what puts them in that discussion of being the laughing stock of college football. But I personally had Colorado, especially the pedestal that people put them at after week 3.
Start, I would agree 100%.
And they were like national championship or bust this year.
I never got on the Colorado train. Never believed it.
Me neither.
Never believed it.
Me neither. And I think they'll be better next year for sure because they've improved the line of scrimmage and the transfer portal and everything. But I just don't know how good of an X and O's coach Dion is, and I don't know if he'll be able to surround himself with those types of coaches in order for Colorado to succeed. I think they have some talent, but them going to the Big 12 next year, even though Texas, Oklahoma are leaving, there's still some great teams in there, and I'd love to see how they compete with that talent level in the Big 12, but I personally think they probably go 7-5 next year. 7-5, maybe 8-4. The next one we got is the most surprising team. I can give my answer first. So I got 2 to 3 surprising teams. I've got Alabama. I thought they were going to be 9-3 coming into this year.
I got mine wrong.
And they completely proved me wrong. They beat Georgia in a very tough game in the SEC championship game, which propelled them to go into the college football playoff. Even though they started off the year rough, losing to Texas and not really having identity as a team, they found it after that USF game where it was very grueling, but they got the job done, and they found that Jalen Milroe is their starting quarterback. And I think even though they didn't win the national championship, I think Nick Saban proved to everyone that he's a phenomenal coach this year.
Yeah. Personally, not to stay on the SEC train or anything, but I think Missouri was my biggest surprise. Before the season started, I wasn't even considering Missouri as really a top 20, top 25 team at all. And I think they surprised a lot of us, especially when they played Georgia as close as they did. I think that's what really kind of got me on, damn, this team is really actually a good football team. Elijah Drinkwitz done a great job building that program. They've actually had a pretty good recruiting class this year.
5-star.
Yeah, a couple 5-star. That 1 or 2 5-stars.
I think it was 1. I know they have a DN.
Yeah,
they have a 5-star, but they might be 2.
Yeah, but their recruiting has gotten a lot better. I think they're really starting to build something, a consistent. I will say I would like to see them be good again this year to show that they can kind of have that consistency on the football field. But I really do think Missouri was probably my biggest surprise team of the year.
I think with Peter Burden coming back and then Eli Drinkowitz, I think he got extended after this year, correct?
He did, yes.
I think they'll be good for years to come. It just depends on if they can establish that culture, they can establish that future with the recruiting classes and just build on that.
Yeah.
The next topic we got, or the next superlative we got, is the most fun to watch. Who did you have the most fun watching this year in college football?
Let's see. Honestly, so although their quarterback did get injured pretty early in the season, I really enjoyed watching Duke at the beginning of the season. Mike Elko led team, who may or may not now be in College Station. But I really actually did enjoy watching Duke those first couple of weeks, kind of how people were getting on that Colorado train. But I still think Duke, they ended up 8-4, right? I think they still had a pretty good season, especially for Duke being predominantly a basketball school, kind of turned that football program around. I think it was really cool to watch. I also there's some of these more like basketball schools, even North Carolina, Kentucky with Mark Stoops, in some seasons, seeing these schools kind of become those football schools that are basketball schools. It's really fun to watch because they have great fan bases. They just haven't had anything to unite around on the football field. So I really think, just as a college football fan, it's fun to see.
I think, like you said, Duke's fan base really showed out this year in football. I can't remember what game it was, but I remember they stormed the field. It might have been the Clemson game.
I think it was.
They stormed the field, and that was an awesome moment. It was just blue everywhere. That was a great moment. I have personally, my favorite team to watch was Arizona. Arizona with Noah Fafita, the true freshman quarterback. They were so fun to watch. He looked like he was on every game that you watched. Even though they lost to USC, that game was, I think it went to double overtime. It was such a fun game to watch. And then them beating Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, which was in San Antonio, where I live. But yeah, they're a super fun team to watch.
Also, another team I really enjoyed watching. You'll like this answer. There's the Oregon Ducks with Bo Nix. Oregon historically is an offensive powerhouse, and this year was no different than that. It was really fun to watch Bo Nix ball out there in Eugene. But
yeah, I love me some Bo Nix. Love me some Bo Nix. I was sad that he didn't get the Heisman. Just needed to beat Washington and couldn't do it. He was 0-3 in his Oregon career against Washington, which stinks. But he's going to be a great quarterback at the next level. I can't guarantee it, but I can for sure say that I truly believe he'll be a great quarterback at the next level. I think his leadership, his decision-making, and his arm talent are just going to propel him to that next level where he can be a great talent and a great quarterback. But next superlative we got is most underachieving, biggest underachiever this year. And for this year, I got USC and Miami as my biggest underachievers. USC, you got the best quarterback in the nation in Caleb Williams. I think he's the solidified number 1 overall pick. If the Bears don't trade that pick, we'll see. But I just think their defense held them back, and they were never able to reach the level that they were last year, where they created turnovers and they were flying around and playing great football.
Right. Yeah. I would also probably agree on the USC. Different than you, I personally am not that big on Caleb Williams. I'm not saying he's not good by any means, but this generational prospect I just personally have not seen, as some other analysts say. But also, I think, although, I mean, they still did decent, Clemson, Dabo really hasn't been able to build them back up to come that national championship contender. And I think Clemson has their fan base, their donor base. They have those expectations, and they're not really reaching those, at least right now. I think Dabo has a really big year here in 24, kind of getting them back up to that national championship contender level.
Do you think Cade Klubnik takes the next step?
So I was a big fan of him coming in to college football. So I really do hope he is able to take that next step up. I would like to see it. I think it'd be good for Clemson. I think it'd be good for all college football fans. And he's shown glimpses of him being able to be that guy there at Clemson, and I hope he is actually able to take that next step.
I don't know if I told you this, but I played against him in high school. Yeah. And we lost.
As you did.
We lost. Yeah. But it was a close game, but we lost. He's a great quarterback. Next one we got is the brightest future in college football. And there's a lot of names you can throw out there. There's you got Auburn had a great recruiting class. They've restructured their coaching staff, but the team that I think has the brightest future, especially if they're able to keep their head coach and they're able to keep their culture and keeping it going. I think it is Missouri with Eli Drinkowitz, because if they're able to retain him, which I don't know if they will be able to, because there's going to be some big fish biting out of him.
A lot of people are going to try and get him, yes.
But I think if they're able to keep him, Missouri, they're able to recruit. The school is just able to recruit. I think recruits want to go there. And if they're able to continue to have an NIL that can get recruits, because even though people say it's not all about the NIL, the recruits and everything, a large portion of recruiting is NIL these days, which is sad to see, but
it is.
It's just a fact that we're going to have to accept. And if they can keep their donors donating, then I could see a bright future for Missouri.
Personally, I do hate this. I don't hate the school. I hate the coach's mentality, but Ole Miss has a very bright future. It's pretty evident what they've been able to do this offseason within the transfer portal and also just in recruiting in general. Lane Kiffin, he's kind of one of those coaches where if you're playing for him, if you're going to that school, you love him to death. But if you're going against him, you hate him. He's an absolutely terrible person sometimes. But Ole Miss has a very bright future. Sadly, Walter Nolan's there now. It's going to help on the defensive front. I think Ole Miss is going to be able to be really good, especially in the 12-team playoff format. I think Ole Miss has a really good chance of going pretty far this year in the playoffs.
I think they have a good chance of winning the West. Now that we all have divisions,
yes.
if there was divisions, I think they would win.
I do agree. I think Ole Miss I would consider them probably in the top 3 of the SEC right now. So I think they have a really good shot this year.
I agree. Now we're going to go on from the superlatives. Those were all the superlatives that we had. But what did you think of the bowl season that we had? Not just the playoff, the bowl games, how they panned out, and how the games finished out.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of the bowl games just because I was in another country, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of them. But we saw a couple teams make their first bowl appearances in a while, especially with Texas State and Rice. I think Texas State getting their first bowl win ever. It's really big just for college football, kind of those schools that are moving up in Division I football. But I thought overall it was a pretty good bowl season, personally, from what I was able to watch. I don't know how many bowl games you were able to watch, but I personally enjoyed bowl season this year.
I watched quite a bit. I wouldn't say I watched all of them, but I watched a majority of them. And another team that won their first bowl game, believe it or not, UTSA.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that because they've been to so many.
Jeff Traylor, yes.
So many in the last couple of years, but they won their first bowl game, and it was out without Frank Harris, their star quarterback. They had their backup quarterback, and they overcame a couple obstacles. I think he threw 2 picks in the first half, their quarterback, but they finished out winning the game. But one game that was amazing to me was that it was a Western Kentucky game, and they came back from 21 points down, and they won the game with a third string quarterback, which I thought was awesome. Yeah. But I really liked the bowl season, but I still can't get over the opt-outs.
The opt-out, yeah. Don't even get me started.
The opt-outs, and then you also have the transfer portal, and it's like half your team's almost gone before you even play. And I think that happened to A&M this year.
Yeah, it did.
Especially. And even though they almost won their bowl game against Oak State, it was definitely apparent that they lost a lot of talent.
Yeah, they're at a disadvantage for sure.
Yeah, and then it didn't help that the quarterback got hurt.
I will say with A&M, Marcel Reed, I thought he did a really good job stepping up in that situation. I mean, I think he'd thrown like a total of 6 passes all year, maybe not even that. But I thought he did a really good job, showed that he could potentially be the next guy after Connor Wigman, or even kind of push him in a quarterback battle this year. So I thought he did a really good job. Also, just on the bowl game note, I thought the Pop-Tart Bowl was really cool. Seeing all that stuff on social media, I thought they did a really good job of advertising and the marketing segment of that, which is something we kind of overlook with just sports in general and that sports business side.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of creeped out by that.
No, I enjoyed it.
And then the one thing I don't get is the mayonnaise bowl. Like, why does the winning coach get mayonnaise dumped on him?
It's tradition. Don't question it. It's just tradition.
It should be the losing. Like, who would want mayonnaise dumped on them?
I think it's cool.
I think it's cool, but I'd want the losing coach.
I'd get mayonnaise dumped on them.
You would?
Yeah, if I won a bowl game, heck yeah.
All right, segueing from that, we got, what's the future of A&M look like to you? Is it going to go like it has the last couple of years where we have talent and we're not able to optimize that talent, or is it going to be different with Mike Elko at the helm?
I mean, I can't guarantee anything, but I would like to believe that Elko saw what was wrong in the Jimbo era and tries to fix that or change that. And I think he said in his press conference, can't remember a direct quote, but he said it's enough about the talking the talk. We have to actually go out there and go do everything. We're going to have kind of that blue-collar mentality. We're going to work hard. We're going to kick your teeth in. We're going to go out there for 60 minutes of a football game and go kick your ass, right? I think that's the mentality he needs to try and instill. And at the end of the day, you can have all these 4 or 5-star players, but if you're not developing that talent, like you said, nothing's going to change. And so we need to really focus more on character and potential of players than just the talent level coming out. Because we've seen a lot of talented players come in at A&M that haven't done really anything due to external factors, internal factors within coaching, developing. So I think, like I said, I can't really guarantee anything, but I would hope Elko kind of instills that culture that he wants to build, just having that blue-collar mentality and work hard and go see what the results are going to be. Let's go win us a national championship here in College Station.
I agree. I think Jimbo was a good talent evaluator. I don't know if he really looked for culture though out of those people. Like he didn't evaluate how would they fit into not only our football team but the program in general, the school and how the school operates. And I think that's a big thing that Mike Elko definitely needs to realize. I think he already has, but he definitely needs to make sure that throughout his whole run as our head coach that he sticks to that and he doesn't waver just because there's money involved. I think it's just not purely got to look at it, but you also have to look at it from a school perspective and how they mold into it.
I mean, with A&M, you look at kind of guys like Anaya Smith and whatnot. Anaya Smith I think he's a 3-star recruit coming out, and he ended up being one of the biggest playmakers for A&M past 5 years. Ja'Day Walker, this past year, he was a transfer. Can't remember do you remember where he played?
I don't.
But, I mean, he was a transfer junior this past year, a really big player for us. Guy like Noah Thomas, great leader out there on the field, great talent too. But, yeah, but it's guys like that you want on your football team, not just looking for the talent. So I really do think we need to focus on the character of the people we're bringing in to our program.
For sure. And moving on from this year, we're going to have a couple predictions for next year. So, who's your Heisman pick for this next year coming up? I've got a couple names. I'll say two. The front runner I have is Carson Beck with Georgia. I feel like he wasn't in the discussion as much as I think he should have been this past year because obviously you have the talent of Brock Bowers, and even though he's hurt for most of the year, you have all that talent around him. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback, and I think he'll do very well next year. And then I have a dark horse pick. I have Noah Fafita. I love that guy. Love watching him. He's so talented, and I think he'll do well. Even though his head coach has moved on from Arizona, I still think he will do very well.
Yeah. I'm going to say a little shocking thing, but as he said in a video after a win against Auburn, give me the Heisman. I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe. Enough said, baby.
That moment still haunts me. I'm not going to lie.
I'm going to leave it right there. He's going to shock the world. He's going to go win the Heisman this year.
That 4th and 31 still haunts me, man. It's only college football can do it. You go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in just a split second when you never thought it could happen. That would have been such a big win, but I think that's a great pick. That's a great pick, and he's probably one of the most athletic college football quarterbacks there's been in a while. But next up, we got Natty predictions. So you're not going to like one of these, but I've got Georgia versus Texas in the final.
Okay.
I think Sark coming back. I think Quinn Ewers coming back. And even though they're losing a lot of receiver talent there, they're going to have a lot of receiver talent coming in. You got Jonte Cook, who's going to be a true sophomore next year. I think he's going to step up majorly for Texas. And for Georgia, I think if they didn't lose to Alabama, they very well might have been the national champions this year. Yeah. And I think that if Georgia and Michigan played, that would have been a very good game. But even though they're losing a lot of talent, they lose a lot of talent every year, and they still find a way to come back. Yep.
Yeah. I would also agree having Georgia, and I kind of touched on it a little earlier, but I really do think Ole Miss can have a really good year next year. So I got Georgia and Ole Miss playing national championship next year. Another little all SEC battle, but I'm an SEC homer, so I'm gonna go Georgia and Ole Miss.
How do you think that would go?
I think Georgia would win. I think Ole Miss could put up a little bit of a battle with them, though, especially if their defense can improve this upcoming year. I think Ole Miss is going to have a very, very good shot at a national championship. So we'll see how it turns out, but I got Georgia Ole Miss national championship.
And one team I do want to bring up, because I think they're maybe being a little bit overlooked, I think Oregon will be very good as well with Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
And you also have Dan Lanning still there, even though he's mentioned with a lot of names like Alabama, even though he definitely was never in Tuscaloosa, even though people thought he was interviewing for that head coaching job. But I think Oregon's overlooked here, and I think they have a very good possibility.
Yeah. Also, with the 12-team playoff, I think this is a prime year for Penn State to finally actually make some noise in a playoff setting. I mean, they're one of those, especially if they're able to get a home playoff game. If they don't have a bye, being one of those first four seeds, I think they could really make a run. They're one of those teams that has been kind of on that cusp of everything. They have a couple losses each year that cost them. But I think this is a prime opportunity for them to really go out there and get their name out there in the national championship little cycle.
Yeah.
So, heck yeah.
Yes, yeah. And one thing I saw when people were talking about Penn State this year is they used the word gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Like they were the gatekeeper of the Big Ten because they weren't able to beat Michigan. They weren't able to beat Ohio State, and they were just kind of there making sure no one else did. No one else came up.
I feel James Franklin, I think he's a hell of a coach, but he's got to figure out a way to kind of beat those the Michigan and the Ohio States of the Big Ten. You got to find a way to beat one of them. at least one of them. Hopefully both, but we'll see.
I think if he was going to do it, I think next year's the year to do it. Because you got Ohio State's going to have a new quarterback, probably going to be Will Howard, and Michigan's losing their head coach, their starting quarterback, and
probably lose Blake Corum too.
James Franklin's going to have his Drew Lair still going to come back. I think that's going to be a very big year to see. I think if he doesn't beat one of them, I think he'll probably get canned, even though it's probably unfair, but
that's how college football works, baby.
Yeah, and then next year we're gonna have a lot of realignments as well. I want to get your thoughts on that because it's gonna shake up the college football world. We're not used to seeing Oregon play in all the way north, and where you got Michigan, you're gonna have them playing in Maryland too. And it's gonna be like completely across the United States, which is gonna be interesting to see.
So I'm going to approach the realignment stuff with not necessarily like college football related, but just with other sports. People forget that football is what football is what generates revenue for an athletic department for a whole school year. So your sports like volleyball or women's basketball, softball, even baseball for some of these schools that aren't as big, they're having a team from California is having to travel all the way northeast across the country to go play a baseball game. So I think it affects other sports more than it's going to affect football. We'll still see some effects on the college football landscape. We're losing a couple rivalries. I think that's the biggest thing. Conferences originally were made for geographical alignment. That's what they were originally for. We've gotten away from that. But other than football, I think it's going to really affect kind of those other smaller revenue sports. So we'll see how it goes.
I think something that people don't talk about is that the conferences originally were also for the students, so they didn't have to, or like the student athletes, so they didn't have to travel as far and miss as much class time. And I think that it'll be a different change, especially because it's not like it's like an out of conference matchup where you're going once a year. It's going to be an every week to a bi-weekly thing where you're traveling halfway across the United States to play one game, and then you're heading back, missing multiple days of school. And we'll just have to see how that goes. It's going to be a big adjustment, and we're going to have to hope that it turns out well, or something else is going to have to change.
I agree.
So that's it for college football. Now we're going to be moving on to the NFL, where Super Bowl Sunday is in 2 Sundays, or next Sunday, not this upcoming Sunday, but next Sunday. And how do you think the playoffs have been so far?
Yeah, I think the playoffs have been actually really exciting this year. I was very happy with Jordan Love and the Packers in the wild card round beating the Dallas Cowboys. Hate that team.
Me too. Me too.
I'm from the Houston area, so I have had a rough 3 years after Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby in Houston, Texas. C.J. Stroud, our savior, Stroud boys all the way, baby. He led us to the playoffs. D'Amico Ryan's first-year head coach got a win over the Browns, who people weren't giving us a single chance at all to beat that Browns team. I think the Texans were a really big surprise. May get into that here a little later. The biggest surprise in the NFL. But last week we saw 2 great conference championship games. Kind of 2 polar opposites. That Chiefs-Ravens game was kind of more of a defensive battle. The Lions obviously got off to a really hot start. Sadly, so last week I was rooting for the Lions and Ravens. I did a little ESPN fantasy games, pick 'em with a couple buddies. I had Lions Ravens in the Super Bowl. They both let me down. But I think overall the playoffs have been great. So yeah.
I agree. I'm a Rams fan, and it was a really tough loss to see. But many people didn't have us in there at all because we were coming off a year where we were really young, and it was just Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald leading leading a lot of young guys around them. And like you said, Puka Nacua stepped up massively. No one expected it out at all, even though like his PFF grade coming out of college was really high. No one expected him to pop off like he did. And then you also had Kyron Williams. But I had great time watching these playoffs. The conference championship games kind of angered me a little bit. I wanted the Ravens to win as well, and they had so many opportunities, to win that game. I love watching Lamar. I love watching mobile quarterbacks and how the stigma gets broken with mobile quarterbacks and how they can win. They can win you a Super Bowl, and they're able to get you to the highest level of the sport. And then the Lions game. I personally didn't like the Lions very much. I thought they played a little dirty against the Rams.
I don't know, but I thought the Lions. I'm a big Lions fan now too. I love Dan Campbell. He's a player's coach, although he made some questionable decisions.
Hey, he stuck to who he is, and you got to respect it.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah. Me and my buddy were actually talking about that today. Just talking about he stuck to his guts, and I mean, if he doesn't make those decisions that he did, if he goes against kind of what he's been doing all year, the narrative's different. People are saying, "Why didn't you go for it? Why didn't you do this?"
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always going to be a narrative to go against what you did. So,
yeah, I definitely respect it. He's got that like Madden mindset, you know, like to go for it on fourth down.
Go for it. Doesn't matter where you're at on the field, just go for it.
Which I respect it, but you know, sometimes you got to go with your gut, even though the analytics tell you something differently. And he did it, and it obviously didn't turn out. But then if it did turn out, it's like
I will say. So the first fourth down that was kind of in question. Josh Reynolds should have caught that football.
Oh yeah.
People, if he doesn't drop that, people aren't 100%. Questioning that decision. The second fourth down, personally, I probably would have kicked 3. I think it was 24-24 at the time.
Yeah,
I would have went up 27-24. I know you risk missing the kick, obviously, but I think you take your chance there. Yeah. But also, I think the biggest thing people kind of are overlooking is when they scored when they were down 34-24. I personally would have rushed the field goal unit on, kicked 3 and saved my timeout, and then be able to get 3 stops, hopefully.
Yeah.
Get the ball back at the very least, but he didn't. He called a timeout and relied on an onside kick, and it didn't work out. So, yeah.
One thing I do want to say is, like, what a game manager Brock Purdy is.
Yeah.
What a game manager.
Yeah. People are I'm a big fan of Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
I loved his story coming, but it's also crazy. Like everybody loved him last year, and then he's kept winning. People hate winners. I mean,
Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady.
Patrick Mahomes was loved when he was beating he didn't beat Tom Brady, but when they kind of took over the AFC and were kind of taking over that Patriots reign, people loved him at first. But he wins now, and people hate him. So I think Patrick Mahomes also, I saw something like they say Tom Brady kind of embraced that villain role a little bit more. People just don't like Pat Mahomes, partly due to Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes, but it is what it is.
And he threw a little temper tantrum a couple times this year, which
also I will like going on with Patrick Mahomes related in the playoffs too. We may never see Josh Allen beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. He can't beat him. He can't beat him. I think it's very similar, kind of like Phillip Rivers. Like he's just not going to win anything in his life. Probably won't be a loser the rest of his life. Not actually. You can cut that part out, but
it's sad to see because his arm talent.
Yeah,
he probably has.
I will say, Stephon Diggs cost him a beautiful throw that probably would have. I think they would have tied. I can't remember if they would have tied it or taken the lead.
Right through his hands.
Yeah, it cost them 100%. But it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Tom Brady.
This era is Tom Brady.
Yeah. Joe Burrow is Peyton Manning. Josh Allen is Phillip Rivers. C.J. Stroud's going to be Ben Roethlisberger. He'll win a couple.
Hopefully. So, like I said, you got the Super Bowl coming out.
Yeah.
Who do you got in it?
So, betting wise, I'm going to go Chiefs. However, I think the 49ers and Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel and Kyle Shanahan and George Kittle can pull this off. I think it's their time. They played them 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
Played them 4 years ago now in a Super Bowl. George Kittle said he's going to be back with a vengeance. I think they're going to be out there. 49ers got a hell of a football team, a hell of a defense as well. I think it's going to be a close game, don't get me wrong, but I think the 49ers are going to pull it off this year. One of my best friends back home, he's a huge 49ers fan, so it's going to kill me to see him happy, but it's okay.
And I think, like we were talking about, the stigma that Brock Purdy is a game manager, this is how you silence all that. If he wins the Super Bowl, there's no way you can come out and say, this kid is a game manager. After, last week's performance, it wasn't run after the kid. He was running.
Yeah.
He was running. He was making use of his legs. He was making plays on his own.
Also, some of the balls that Purdy throws, people he has his couple bad throws here and there, but some of the balls that he throws is just absolute needles going through a defense. There was one to Debo last week. I think it was in the first or second quarter. There was 5 defenders around him. Absolutely threaded the needle. Debo got, 13 yards after the catch. But it's throws like that show you, he's more than a little bit of a game manager. He's there to win. He is winning, and I think people are going to overlook him probably the rest of his career, but that's okay. If he gets that ring this Sunday, he'll shut all y'all up. So Purdy sturdy, baby. Purdy sturdy.
I think it'll be a fun one, especially because you got 2 just massive fan bases. You got the Chiefs, and then obviously you got the 49ers, who they're probably the second biggest fan base behind the Cowboys.
I would agree.
And I personally, I have the Chiefs. I just can't see a way that you pick against Patrick Mahomes.
That's why I said betting wise. Yeah. I'm not betting against the Chiefs.
And just because, like you said, Patrick Mahomes is this era's Tom Brady. It's really hard to go against Patrick Mahomes, even though this team hasn't been his best, especially offensive team.
Yeah, around him.
This is probably the best defensive team that he's had, but they're clicking at the right time. Travis Kelce, monster game against the Ravens last week, and without that game, they probably would have lost that game without Travis Kelce, because that back shoulder catch, ridiculous. But yeah, I'm personally going to go with the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs have a lot of haters right now because of Taylor Swift. And I'd like to get your thoughts on the Taylor Swift drama throughout this year.
Going back to the Chiefs Niners, bang bang, Niner gang, baby, let's go, riding the train. Anyways, with the Taylor Swift stuff, so I'm not gonna piss off any of your subscribers, women, but so I think it is a little bit much. I don't mind them necessarily showing her, but the amount of times that they are showing her is absolutely insane. We don't need to see her after every Travis Kelce freaking catch, okay? We can see her after half or something, or just
score,
her,
maybe.
after a score, okay. But every time Kelce gets a block or a catch, let's calm down there, NBC, Fox, CBS, ESPN. But, I will say my sister never watched a single football game in her life on television until this year because she loves Taylor Swift. And she actually somewhat watches the game now, which
that's awesome.
It's awesome to see. There's a lot of women out there, I'm sure, that are like that as well. So I guess she has kind of helped somewhat.
I think that's the part that people kind of miss, is that even though obviously it shows her a lot, it also brings eyes to the sport that we love, and it makes it more popular. Which why would you not want that?
I agree 100%.
Why would you not see that? But like you also said, they do it over the top.
Well, yeah. So obviously, Brittany Mahomes ain't as popular as Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah,
nearly. But for the past 5-6 years, Patrick Mahomes has been in the league. How many times have they shown Brittany Mahomes on the television screen? Not very many. Until this year, and now she's Taylor Swift's best friend.
That speaks to who she is. Definitely, 100%. But and at the end of the day, it's a money thing.
Yeah.
I think the numbers came out. It was close to
330. It's 331.1.
Yeah, it added that much value to the NFL and the Chiefs organization. Which, hey, at the end of the day, if you're making money, you're going to keep on doing it, even though people might not like it. You're going to keep on doing it.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go on to the MVP discussion. Who do you think is this year's MVP?
Ooh, Lamar Jackson. I mean, there's a couple people that are behind him in the race that may get a vote or two, but I think Lamar's regular season was absolutely insane. I think there's not really much else to say about it. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the way he played, look at how dominant the Ravens were. That was in large part due to him, and so I'm going to go Lamar Jackson. I do think C.J. Stroud should get one vote, though. One vote. At the very least.
Just put him on the ballot?
The Texans weren't expected to win 4 games this year. We ended up winning the division with a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, 10-7 record, beat the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. So people thought Kevin Stefanski should have been coach of the damn year. But I'll go Lamar Jackson. Enough of my rant about my Texans.
Stefanski definitely deserves to be in the discussion.
He does need to be in the discussion, but we can calm down on that.
Because you had Deshaun Watson, your starting quarterback, who is now probably the most hated.
I'm a massage lover.
Yeah.
Screw that guy.
Very hated player, which he is talented. He didn't show it very much this year, but he was obviously out for the year. But
he's a scrub.
I also have Lamar Jackson as my MVP, and many people now are talking about his performance in the playoffs. And obviously, this is a regular season award, but you can't think that people just take that out of their mind that this is how he lost, this is how his year ended. But I think CMC obviously should be in the discussion, even though at this point in the football era, it's a quarterback award, which it stinks to see. And I also think Tyreek Hill deserves a lot of recognition as well.
He's getting overlooked a lot, actually.
Yeah. Because people at the beginning of the year were like, Tua should be in the discussion, not even mentioning Tyreek Hill, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But I think Tyreek Hill definitely deserves some recognition. But at the end of the day, it's got to be Lamar.
Heck yeah.
All right, let's move on to our NFL superlatives now. So we got the class clown for the NFL. Who do you think that is?
I'm going to go the Los Angeles Chargers or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers, 2 words, Matt Canada. That's all I need to say. With the Chargers, with the talent that team has, I don't understand how Brandon Staley wasn't able to get more out of that team. Justin Herbert, one of the most talented quarterbacks, I feel like, or young quarterbacks in the NFL. Top 5, top 10 quarterback right now. And he's essentially wasting his season right now. He's been to playoffs, once. I think he's a great quarterback. They are wasting his talent, especially on a cheaper contract as well. So, I don't know. Hopefully Harbaugh can get the Chargers kind of going because I think they got a lot of talent. I think they should be a lot better. They should be competing with the Chiefs to win that division. So, we'll see.
I agree for sure. But my class clown, and this is mainly because of the Taylor Swift drama, I got Travis Kelce. I feel like he's also become more like hyperbolized, and he's been acting up more than he has the last couple of years, especially in that conference championship game. He was just, after every catch, after every block he made, it was just like he was putting on a show, even though he's playing a football game. And I feel like many people
swagger.
Yeah, swagger. You think it's swagger? But I think I wouldn't say he's the laughing stock of the league, but he's definitely not as reputable as he used to be after this year. Next up, we got most underachieving team.
Okay, so this team did make the playoffs. I'm going to go the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys and their fan base, especially their fan base, that's what makes me Stephen A. Smith and me kind of agree on this. But regular season wise, they've continued to be having these 12, 13 win seasons. And when they get in the wild card or divisional round, they absolutely choke. There was no reason for them to lose to the Packers at home in a sellout crowd with a chance to go play. I can't remember who they have played at. They had won all.
If they have won,
yeah,
against the Packers.
You get my point, though. You have a chance to host another home playoff game, to go to your first NFC Championship game, and I think, let's see,
been over
28 years since 1996. There's no shot that the Cowboys shouldn't be playing this bad in the playoffs. And then Jerry Jones said in an interview, I think yesterday or a couple of days ago, I can't remember the exact date, but he said something along the lines of, if people are talking about us, we're doing something right. They're not talking about you for the right reasons, Jerry. You have to eventually change your ways of what you're doing. And I also think the Cowboys have had a lot of coaches past 28 years since they won their last Super Bowl. Jerry Jones sold his soul to win a Super Bowl, and we see where they're at now. That's my opinion.
And I think it's crazy that they retained McCarthy after all this, because I thought if they didn't make the NFC Championship game at the very least, they were going to fire him.
Yeah.
And I think it starts at the top, like you were talking about, Jerry Jones. I think because he's in every decision they make as an organization, which you can think about that what you may, but he's just he can't adapt to the times.
Some owners should not be involved in decision making, and I think it's evident with Jerry.
I agree, 100%. My most underachieving team, and it's in the same division. I have the Eagles, even though they had a lot of injuries and they weren't able to stay healthy for most of the year. I just think after going to the Super Bowl, I think they had that Super Bowl hangover, and it wasn't even at the beginning of the year, which it's with most teams. It was in the middle of the year where I think they went on a 4-game losing streak. There was a 3-game losing streak at some point during the year, but I just think they completely underachieved.
I also think another underachieving team, won't go into much detail, but the Jacksonville Jaguars. They started 8-3 with 2 of their losses to the top 2 seeds in the AFC at the time, and they ended up finishing the season 9-7. I think that is beyond crazy to me that they fell off that hard. I know they had a couple injuries, but there was no reason for them to only win 1 game after going 8-3, finish the season. That's 1-6 to finish the season. I think that's just crazy to me. Or 1-5.
I agree. I also think that is partially because Trevor Lawrence, even though he played in a lot of games, he was injured almost. Or like at the start of the year he was healthy, but midway through the year he was just completely banged up, and I think that really showed, especially that ankle injury. Yeah. That was a nasty one. And so now we got most fun team to watch. Who's your most fun team to watch?
I will be a little biased, but I think if you truly watch the NFL, the Houston Texans were a very, very fun team to watch this year. I kind of touched on it earlier, but you had a rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, who some people were underestimating when he was coming in. Texans obviously picked the right guy. Thank you, Lovie Smith. Love you forever in Houston. Rookie head coach, D'Amico Ryans. I think he fits the Texans so well, especially being a former linebacker for us. He fits the Houston culture. He knows what the city of Houston's about. He knows what he wanted to build. He came in there. He changed the culture that kind of our past couple head coaches have kind of declined the culture in Houston. Also, with the Texans, too, that people just not even – I'll go in that in a second, but also I didn't even touch on Tank Dell. Derek Stingley had a great year. Especially he was
playmaker.
Yeah, he was injured his rookie year. People were kind of overlooking him again. Some people were even saying he's a bust. That's more on the extreme side, but he really came back, showed a lot of people who he is again.
Oh, yeah.
Will Anderson had a great rookie year. Jonathan Grenard on the other side of the defensive line. Malik Collins, Blake Cashman, Denzel Perryman played great in the linebacker. Damn it, I lost my word.
Linebacker crew.
Yeah, linebacker crew. Thank you. But yeah, I think Texans are fun to watch. Also, what people overlook is kind of the ownership and front office side. Nick Caserio did a great job kind of signing players in the offseason, building a good little culture of a team that he could build around these rookies. Then also our owner, Bob McNair, or Cal McNair, excuse me. Rest in peace, Bob. You can cut that part out. But Cal McNair, him and his wife, they did a great job kind of changing the front office stuff, kind of marketing stuff towards fans, getting them back hyped into the fan base, wanting them to come to games. But I think the Texans were my favorite team to watch, excluding my bias.
I think they were my favorite team to watch too, but I'll throw the Lions in there as well. I think the way Dan Campbell coached, as we were talking about, going for it on fourth down, yes. I think it's obviously it hurts you sometimes, but I think it's a refreshing way to play football that we haven't. It's not like a old school era thing. It's definitely a new school era thing with analytics and everything like that. But I think the Lions were very fun to watch. Yeah. So who's your most surprising, either team or player in the NFL this year?
Surprising player, I'll go Puka. I mean, you kind of touched on one earlier, but I mean, I didn't even know who he was before this season. I knew about him within 2 weeks of the season. I tried to pick him up on my fantasy waiver wires, but he had a hell of a year. He's going to be in the Rookie of the Year consideration. I think it's a two-man race between him, C.J. Stroud, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But I think he had a great year. I think he's going to continue to build upon it. Broke the rookie wide receiving record for yards receiving. So I think he had a hell of a year. I think he's the most surprising player for me.
Player-wise, also on the Rams, I think Kyron Williams is definitely in that discussion as well. And believe it or not, not a lot of people know this. He was second in rushing this year. And I think he missed 4 games.
Yeah.
Second in rushing behind Christian McCaffrey, beating names like Derrick Henry, beating a lot of great running backs out there. And that definitely surprised me. And I'm a Rams fan, and I've known about him for a while out of Notre Dame. But now let's go to team. Who's your most surprising team?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the AFC South. I think the Colts had a great year, especially even after Anthony Richardson went down. I think people were already starting to say they're going to suck again. But Gardner Minshew did a hell of a job there. Indianapolis, I mean, they were playing for a playoff spot last week of the season. I think nobody really expected that, but they just kind of kept winning. It's kind of the same way with my Houston Texans. Like, people were saying they're going to fall off eventually, but no, they just, week by week, they just kind of kept winning those games. You didn't think they had a chance, right? I think that was a big thing that the Colts did. I think they're going to be really good next year as well. But that's my most surprising team.
I'm going to say another player because I just thought about it. Want to give him some love as well. Jordan Love. I thought he played, especially I was very low on him at the beginning of the year. I thought his completion percentage wasn't very good, even though he had a great touchdown-interception ratio. But he definitely improved at the end of the year going into the playoffs, obviously beating the Cowboys in his first playoff start. And
he almost beat the Niners, too.
Almost beat the Niners as well. And obviously, as a Green Bay Packers quarterback, he's drawing those comparisons to, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, which I don't think those are that far off. With how he played against the Cowboys, he looked like a Pro Bowler. He looked phenomenal. So I just wanted to show Jordan Love some love.
Thank you.
But my most surprising team, it's either got to be the Rams or the Texans, but I'll go with the Texans because you have that rookie head coach in DeMeco Ryan.
H-is-up.
And the way C.J. Stroud was able to perform as a quarterback, even though he didn't test very well, which many people thought he wasn't going to be a good quarterback. And I thought that was ridiculous. I can't believe people wrote him off just because of a QB test that they had. But I thought they played phenomenal. I think Tank Dell will be a very bright piece in their future if he can stay healthy.
He needs to bulk up in the offseason.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
He's way too light right 100%. Now. But go ahead.
No, you're good. I was done on my point.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's it with the superlatives. We talked about the MVP award a little bit, but what are your other predictions for the awards? We got Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year.
Rookie of the year, I kind of already touched on it with C.J. Stroud and Puka. I think it's a toss-up. I can't really say who I think is going to win. So I think it's just going to be a toss-up what the voters end up picking. With defensive rookie of the year, I think it's Will Anderson. Personally, I think he had a great year. Also, the DB on the Seahawks,
Witherspoon.
Yeah, Witherspoon. I think also it could go to him. He had a hell of a year, especially being a rookie DB. DB, other than quarterback, is arguably probably the hardest position to play on the football field. He did a great job stepping in on that defense. But that's who I have for the rookie of the years. If you want to share yours.
So even though it hurts me to say it, I've got C.J. Stroud, and I'm a huge Puka fan, but I got C.J. Stroud, and for defensive rookie of the year, I think there's a couple names it could be. You got Kobe Turner from the Rams. I thought he was very good this year. Will Anderson, Witherspoon, and you got Carter as well for the Eagles. But I've got Witherspoon. I think him playing in Seattle as a rookie DB, I think, like you said, it's one of the hardest positions, especially as a rookie. Like rookie quarterbacks and rookie DBs, I think it's pretty similar how hard it is to adjust to the league, the route running abilities that NFL receivers have, the speed. I'd go Witherspoon there. Oh, and now on to the next awards. Who was your offensive and defensive player of the year?
Yeah, so defensive player of the year, I got it between two. I'm going to go either Myles Garrett or Darren Bland. With Myles Garrett, I think he's a dominant force on the defensive front for the Browns. He's the leader of that defense. He affects how offensive coordinators are calling plays for their offense. You watch those videos of him doing that little crossover, walk up, freaking blows past center, right guard, left guard, goes absolutely destroys the backfield. But he's been dominant since he's come in the league. He's had a great season. Statistically, I don't know exactly how many sacks he had, but it was near that upper teen, near in the 20 range, I believe. But he is probably one or two for me on defense player of the year. Darren Bland, I think it's kind of explanatory. Dude broke the pick six interception record. It's hard to get one pick six as it is, but I think he had 5, 6 of them. It was 5 or 6, but dude absolutely balled out this year. I think he had a great year. It's 2 years in a row now. We had Trayvon Diggs, and then now Darren Bland for the Cowboys. The secondary is really good for them. So, heck yeah.
I think Deron Bland is my defensive player of the year personally. I think, like you said, 5 or 6 sixes. I think that's ridiculous numbers. Obviously, never been put up before. And I think it's Deron Bland. Even though me and you aren't Cowboys fans, we recognize that. Yeah. That's just a crazy year from him. Now on to offensive player of the year. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with CMC or Tyreek Hill. I think both of them had excellent years. Tyreek, he neared 2,000 yards receiving. He's out a couple games with injury too. But, that's almost unheard of a receiver doing, especially with as much receiver talent we have in the NFL, especially just on the Dolphins as well, too. He's got a lot of weapons that he can use. Tyreek, he's been able to get open on both teams he's been on. Obviously with the Chiefs, he was a force, and he's continued that in Miami. And then also CMC, he's the best running back in football. I think you're wild to say he's not. There's a couple people who are pretty close to him, but, he continues to be consistent in his run game. He dominates in the backfield. He's also a great threat out of the backfield in the passing game. I think he does everything on the football field. So those are my two candidates for Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I have to agree with CMC. I think he's put up the stats, and I think his team's in the Super Bowl now. And I feel like before he went to the 49ers, everyone kind of wrote him off and was like, oh, he's injury prone. He'll never be the same player he was. Maybe I think it was his second year in the league where he had 2,000 all-purpose yards. And I think when he was on the Panthers, he just had to do so much to the point where his body couldn't take it anymore, and that he was overstraining himself. And I think now in the 49ers, he can just be free and he can play just be CMC instead of just overdoing everything and just being the sole player on the team. Now he's on a team that's stacked offensive and defensively, and he can just be CMC.
Heck yeah.
But that's it for the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know what y'all thought about our takes in the comments down below, and look out for new videos coming out this week. But we'll see you next time. Peace out.